Robert Eggers has a new movie in theaters. I would say acclaimed writer director
Yeah.
released Nosferatu on Christmas Day. It's his fourth movie, and you and I got a chance to see this and kind of let it marinate a little bit. And
Yeah.
we
Well,
thought,
you have, because how long has it been since you've watched it?
I saw it. It came out on Christmas Day, which was Wednesday. I saw it Friday, so it's
Oof.
been 3 days, I guess, for me. And you saw it what, last night?
Yeah, I've now had about what is it? About 20 hours. Yeah, 20 hours to marinate on it.
A little bit of time to think about it. We thought it'd be fun to rank his movies. He's only done four movies. He's been making um, movies around every 2 or 3 years since
Hmm.
2015 when he released The Witch. Then he did The Lighthouse in 2019, The Northman in 2022, and now Nosferatu in 2024. I
Which
think
is something
he's
he wanted to start with. He wanted to start with Nosferatu, but it wouldn't get approved. He even worked on the screenplay in the very beginning, and there are a lot of fascinating things about, like, Bill Skarsgård was originally set to play Thomas, who is played by Nicholas Hoult in this version, but Eggers also directed like a high school stage play and
yeah.
played Count Orlok. So he's been attached to this story in a very personal way for a very long time.
And I was reading too that when he did that play, they made it to where it appeared kind of black and white on the
Yeah.
stage, which is interesting, obviously, with the color palette they use in this one,
Hmm.
where it's almost grayscale. And going
Yeah.
into the movie, I had seen the trailer, but I couldn't remember if it was black and white, and it basically is
Hmm.
in a lot of ways because the color is just no pun intended, just like drained from this movie in a really great way. I think Eggers is an interesting director
Oh yeah.
because all four of his movies feel unique, but they
Hmm.
feel like it's his fingerprint all over them.
Yeah.
And I think with casual viewers, especially, maybe even people that branch out into different kinds of movies, there are some hurdles I think you have to jump over to really kind of get into what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. I think he intentionally does like these slow burn um, movies. It's just like an intentional nature of his movies.
Yeah.
The dialogue or the dialect is hard to navigate sometimes.
Hmm.
I know I felt that watching The Witch for the very first time, where it's like
Hmm.
40 minutes go by, and I was like, I don't feel like I know what's going on. And I saw it
Or
on the first
understand.
time. Yeah. And I flipped the closed captioning on and just like kind of clicked. I'm like, okay, now I'm putting together what is being said and done in these movies, which is it's interesting because he goes for it. In all four of these movies, they feel like I am by no means a history buff, but they feel authentic to whatever time the story
Yeah.
is being set.
And he takes a lot of meticulous steps to make sure that he is trying to stay as accurate to that time period as possible.
And I would love to, because people like really and this is a different kind of movie, but like Gladiator 2, even when the trailer was released, we had people with knowledge or historians just like ripping it of that's not something that was going on during that time.
There is no giant aquarium that the Colosseum was turned into.
They're not reading newspapers in a cafe when that happened. But we thought it'd be fun to rank Robert Eggers' four films. And this is just a random thing that I always
Yeah,
thought. I always thought this guy was from like the UK. He was
yeah,
like born in New York and raised in New Hampshire. So I
yeah.
don't know. He just seems like
Otherworldly.
I don't know. He's maybe it's because his movies are just like,
That. Yeah, exactly.
they really are not set. Well, they're always like the way back for one, and they just something about him. I don't know. I didn't know he was an American dude, which is kind of interesting.
He's like a Count Orlok. He's a very enigmatic
Well,
person.
he's been around for like 600 years too. We just didn't know it. So we'll rank these, I guess, back and forth, starting with number four, low
Hmm.
tier. And would you like me to go first?
Yeah.
I
I feel like, by
wonder.
the way, I'll say that I feel like we're going to have the same number four, but it's going to change after that.
Yeah, what's interesting too is I Googled Robert Eggers ranked, and you get
Hmm.
various websites do this. This isn't a new thing. My list though, what I had done is different than what I see a lot. So maybe we won't like I just mean that like I do wonder if you and I are gonna be similar. But what I have at number four is generally higher on these cool websites that I
Hmm.
visit. And I have I hate to say this, I have the Lighthouse as my number four.
That's the same for me.
It's just like I understand this is like really well made.
Hmm.
The acting is great. It's almost too intentionally vague for me. And Eggers said with The Witch, he there's not a lot you can like interpret other than what's presented with
Yeah.
The Witch. With this one, they intentionally or he intentionally did it to where you could take a million things away from the movie. You could um because I got on Reddit and I was like, what do people think this movie means? And
Hmm.
there's so many different interpretations, which I do think is kind of fun. I think this is just like his least accessible movie
Oh
for
yeah.
an average audience, even for I think people like you and me that are really open to a lot of different kinds of things. So it's last on the list for me, but I do still dig it. I think Pattinson's great, Defoe's great. They have good chemistry. Just not a favorite, not even a rewatching. I will say I rewatched all these heading into this ranking, and there's about a 30-minute, 40-minute stretch where I debated. I really thought this might be my favorite. And then the more it went on, the vagueness kind of hurt it a little
Wow.
bit for me.
Okay. Because that's where I think that this is one of those movies that y we get a lot of really interesting things. And I think honestly the history part of it, this or tying it to Greek mythology, I think that's really fascinating. And if you don't know that, it makes this movie really hard to watch. And I think, as you said, the least accessible of all of his films.
All right. So number three is next. I'm going to put Nosferatu at number three. And this is where I'm
Oh,
wondering if maybe you and I diverge a little bit on this one. It has the potential to climb. I need to see this again.
hmm.
We mentioned this watching an Eggers movie. I feel like you got to watch these things
Oh yeah.
a handful of times.
Yep.
Really great performances. I love seeing Nicholas Holt shine. That guy's on
Oh
a
man.
two him and Aaron Taylor Johnson, two radically different like past month and a half. Because Juror
No
number two
kidding.
is amazing. Holt is amazing in this. And then obviously Aaron Taylor Johnson with Craven, which I still haven't seen yet. But is he okay in that? I know you got a chance to see it.
Ah, he's
Okay.
fine. He's like you can tell that he has fun with it, but it's not going to do anything for his career. I can tell you that.
So Holt's great. Lily Rose Depp is good. I think the weak link in this is actually Aaron Taylor Johnson. Like he's
Hmm.
just okay. Maybe that's the way the character was written, but
Yeah.
he didn't
Yeah.
like blow me away or anything.
Yeah.
Um, and then the marketing for this, it made a huge deal out of not showing what Bill Skarsgård looks like
Yeah.
as Count Orlok, and uh, and I love that. I think hiding the reveal is cool, but when I watched it, I was a little underwhelmed. I don't know how you
Oh
felt.
yeah.
I don't, and this is maybe a bad critique because Eggers has explained it and he said there's precedent for it, but Orlok's mustache, there was something about it that was just distracting
Yeah.
to me. I think Skarsgård's great. I think the underwhelming feel of his look kind of lowered my enjoyment a bit, if that makes
Yeah.
any
Oh
sense.
yeah, for sure.
I really don't have a real reason why this is number three, other than I liked it more than The Lighthouse, but the other two I've seen more and I like more. So that's why I say it does have some room to grow. But right now, sitting at number three.
Well, I was going to say I do have a hot take on Nosferatu.
And
And
you said it was
there's
one word.
one
And
word
I
that comes to mind on this, And I'm
Can I
going
can I
to,
guess what it is?
what's that?
Is the word overrated? Or
Oh,
is it too early for overrated because it literally just came out?
that's pretty close. That's pretty close. My one word for this movie is disappointing.
Oh, so is this your number three?
This is my number three, and I thought long and hard about this because I'm like, I can't put it at number four because I do think that this is a more digestible movie, no pun intended, than The Lighthouse. I think that there are a lot of things working here that make this a great thing, but I've got a pitch, I've got a proposal that I'm going to say to you that would make Nosferatu the current modern take 100 years after we get the original silent film that would make Nosferatu the best horror film we've seen in years. And I'll pitch that for after why I get into my disappointment. So, number one, like you said, I think that the look is very underwhelming. The mustache, even though Eggers has talked about, well, Dracula and the Bram Stoker's actual novel had a mustache. Like he was kind of a product of that time. I do think making Orlok look like a putrid, as he was calling him, a putrid bag of bones, more or less.
He's
I
like a
found
zombie almost. He's more zombie
yes,
than vampire to me.
yeah, I found that to be interesting. I think the look, oh, all of that was good. I enjoyed that. But my one big complaint about this is it doesn't have to be scary. I think if he leaned into the fact of the psychological, it makes you wonder, was this real or not? Like that, I think, is the real scary element. And so my pitch to make Nosferatu the best version is what would end up being the ultimate hot take on this movie. And I think probably a lot of people who are raving about this, they would completely disagree with me, but I'm open to hear from them about why maybe I'm wrong. So I would argue take out Count Orlok and all of his scenes, take him out except for three. In the very beginning, when Ellen is first succumbing to him, and she's literally summoning him. I think that's when we see him, that quick shot. I think that's a really interesting, scary image of like, oh my gosh, what was that? And then on top of that, she's being literally taken over by him and basically possessed. The second time is the middle of the story. We don't see Count Orlok and Thomas interact at all. I think the best way to cut out a part of the movie, cut the movie down, but also cut that out of him being at the castle, make it seem not just like a fever dream, but like, did it happen at all? What did he encounter? What did he see? When he boards the carriage, and I should save spoilers on this movie as well, so people aren't coming for us. But once he boards that carriage, cut. And we focus on Ellen. And then boom, what happened? Where did Thomas go? He's been missing for so long. We don't see Count Orlok, we don't see the crypt, we don't see any of that stuff. The second time that we see Count Orlok is whenever Ellen is in her room and she's talking to him. Then we could end up getting that reveal of what does he look like to her, but then again, is he real? Like we don't know. We've only seen him through her eyes. And then the third time is at the very end of the movie. Don't end on that shot of him laying on top of her. I think we see that, but then it cuts to her laying naked in bed. And it's like, wait a second, is this real? Was he really a thing? Because all of the things happen like, you know, a ton of people dying, but was that part of the Black Plague? Was this part of the bubonic plague that started sweeping over this town? Or was it just an infestation by rats? Was it some other kind of plague? And then you start to think, are these products of people losing their mind or of like something that's actually happening there? And really have that science and spirituality confrontation there. And I think if you really take him out of this movie, it would make the movie not only scarier, but I think it would be one of my favorite horror movies in a very, very long time. I would argue this could be the answer to Get Out of we've been waiting on a story like this since Get Out. To be thrilling, and also horrifying at the same time for a lot of different reasons. But I think you really play into um, that aspect of it, and we just didn't get that here. That's why I was disappointed with this movie. I do think, like you said, Bill Skarsgård does a great job. Acting is pretty solid all around. I did enjoy Aaron Taylor Johnson, but I think that whole Count Orlok thing is what took this down so much for me. And I also have to say, it makes me appreciate the maybe the qualities of Salem's Lot, of getting that version of seeing what we do in Salem's Lot with that vampire, and then also getting that story. I think you can have a monster story, but keep that for Salem's Lot. I want my Nosferatu without the count, at least
It's a
what we
little.
see.
I do agree. Um, Maybe use him a little bit less
Yeah,
because
I say,
he's in the beginning a ton.
yeah, and
Like
that's
that
where I'm
first
like,
scene with Holt, like that just
it's a lot, too
it goes
much.
on a long time.
Yeah. So
And
that's
I feel like we got him so early that it kind of took away some of the mystery. I have no connection to the original or the remakes.
I'm the
So
same.
maybe that's no, he's Eggers is following that story pretty closely, but a little underwhelmed, but I still liked it. I love the last shot. I mean, I'll mention this
Oh,
again,
it's
but
good.
he closes his movies with really memorable closing shots.
Oh yeah.
And this one especially, I kind of like that we just had, him on top of her and then Willem Dafoe's just pondering out the window, looking at it. So you and me, same 4 and 3.
Yep.
Number two, we might have the exact same list. This might not be super interesting.
Oh,
The Northman, number 2 for me.
oh man. That's
Uh,
my number two. Yeah.
I mean, he's working with a bigger budget here for the first time. He's still doing full Robert Eggers mode,
Yeah.
but it's, I think, more mainstream. I like the mixture of just like straight up Viking revenge mixed with these mystical elements that it intertwines. Um, I mentioned the closing shot. This one has maybe my favorite of the three outside of the witch. And I was a little soft on this one when it first came out. Rewatching it, climbed quite a bit on my rankings list. So The Northman number 2. I guess one critique I have on this movie is the action sequences are cool, but because they're all done like single shot, sometimes it too frequently feels slow motion, too
Yeah.
choreographed, and I think that's noticeable. But as a whole, I kind of just like the aggressive like violence in this one
Yeah.
because it is kind of unlike his, I think, other 3 movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, number 3
Yeah.
or
That
number 2. Sorry, my bad.
number, but you're, yeah. So going up the list, that's the same for me. This is probably the one movie on this list that I have the least amount to say about. And it's funny because I thought this would rank lower, but I'm like, no. I do enjoy that he's reaching higher with this movie. He is, like you said, working with a bigger budget. It seems like more of an ensemble. He has more moving pieces. And I think this, if anything, goes to prove that he isn't just a small independent filmmaker. I think he could do some pretty big budget stuff, but then more importantly, keep it in a good budget, like mid-budget range or a lower budget, and make it look good.
And make it his own too, because
Yes.
it still feels very much like him.
Hmm.
It's like that kind of it's like the dialogue, but then there's these weird elements that I'm like, oh
Yeah.
wow, that's it doesn't feel commercial
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. So The Witch number 1,
Number
you and
one.
I had the exact same thing, which
It's
is
it's hard to deny how good that movie is, and especially right out of the gate. I mean, an
yeah.
incredible debut.
And it also I think leans into what you and I like, which is horror. This
Yeah.
is, I think, I watched this one late last night. I think it's still genuinely unsettling to
So
watch.
unsettling.
Every once in a while you watch a movie, or at least I do, and you kind of get the feeling it's something maybe you shouldn't be watching. Like
Yeah.
it just has that feel to it because it feels evil in a way.
Hmm.
And I just love the way that he like slowly amps up the this descent into madness because it kind of lures you in,
Yeah.
and then you're waiting for something to happen. And then when it does, it's like super jarring, or the imagery is just like it makes your skin crawl. And that happens several times in this. And I understand that's not going to work for a lot of people. That slow burn is just not going to be
Yeah.
that will turn a lot of people off. This works for me. I love the closing shot. And yeah, it's his first movie, and I think it's still his best movie.
I agree. I think this is for all the reasons that you stated, and then also such an interesting uh, like dive into the occult, more or less, because he studied that, and he was worried about getting lost in the occult with studying it for Nosferatu. But I feel like The Witch is more of that. Like, if you were to say which one would Robert Eggers be more likely of losing himself to the occult, I would say The Witch.
I
But
would think so too, because yeah.
it just seems like
Um
you said, so unsettling. There's so much here. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like whenever I was in the theater watching that, it was me and another random couple. They sat like maybe 2 rows behind me. And as soon as it was over, that lady like leaned forward and she was like, I don't know if we were supposed to see this movie. And I'm like, yeah,
I
that's
love that.
exactly how I feel.
That's a good feeling though, because it doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, there's that weird feeling of you've discovered something that
Yeah.
you shouldn't be watching.
Yeah.
So those are his four movies ranked that
The
he's done
QC,
now,
the unanimous QC list.
which is just so obviously you and I are going to have the exact same list because why why would we
Yeah.
have differing opinions? Now we
I
might have differing opinions on what he's rumored to be doing next,
see, and I don't know
which
this.
and you don't know this. Um the rumor is that he's doing a remake of Labyrinth, that Jim Henson film from
What?
1986 maybe with
Yeah,
Bowie. I've never seen that movie.
I haven't
I've
either.
I remember things about it from growing up, but I don't think I've ever seen it. That would be that caught me off guard reading that because it just doesn't seem like it seems we're stepping into territory that is unusual because it
Yeah.
is. I would say that's going to be very mainstream studio, and they're going to want saying what's in it because they want to make money.
Hmm.
But we had that with like Nolan. Nolan gradually, you know,
Yeah.
moved into that territory, and other people have done it. So we'll see if that actually happens. But that's the rumor right now, is that he is
Hmm.
in line to do that. And I know they've been trying to do a reboot, a remake, or something, a sequel to this for a long time. So we'll see
That's
if it actually happens.
that's fascinating because I'm here for anything Robert Eggers makes. I am very fascinated by this filmmaker, and I can't wait to see whether it's Labyrinth or even if he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna remake Twins with Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger." I'm like, I'm here for that.
Did you see somebody ask him if he would ever do a comedy, and he was just like, "Why the f would I do that? Like I'm good at what I do. Just let me do that."
That's awesome. I know that he said he has no interest in doing like a modern day movie, like set in present day.
Mm. It doesn't surprise me 4 movies in, but I think at some point he's going to do that.
He will. Yeah.